Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. It's so fun to see all of your faces. And I feel very lucky to talk with you all for the next 15 minutes or so. And again, just really, really happy that you are here. Um, as we've already established, my name is Kate Bingaman-Burt. I use she, her pronouns, and I am so honored to be speaking with you today. And like mentioned, it's been almost 10 freaking years since I had the total pleasure and absolute terror of delivering the very first Creative Mornings talk here in Portland. 10 years ago, I talked about my love affair with documenting my life through drawing. And how creating a simple rules system to follow for yourself can assist with daily art making and maybe lead to other ways of creative making. So today, I am going to try to quickly unpack what home means to me and how turning spaces into places where people feel welcomed and encouraged to make and maybe meet some new friends in the process is always at the front of my mind. I am always trying to figure out how to make places for people to make things and to meet people. And the pandemic really made me question how to create community when you couldn't physically be around people. Currently, I'm the Associate Director of the School of Art and Design at Portland State and the head of the graphic design program. I'm starting my 14th year teaching there this fall. 4 years ago, I opened Outlet, which is a community print studio, event space, and zine library, as well as my illustration studio. 3 years ago, I had Hank, who rocks my world on the daily. And as you can see, I'm training him for future employment at Outlet. And 2 years ago, I hired Leland Vaughan, who also rocks my world on the daily and is Outlet's full-time studio manager. But seriously, who are we kidding? They are my total partner in all things printing and community. And finally, 16 and a half months ago, the pandemic shut almost everything down. For me personally, two of the things that it massively affected immediately were in-person teaching and all of our lectures, workshops, field trips, and portfolio events that had become such a huge part of the experience of being a Portland State graphic design student. And it shut down my very in-person, very small, very hands-on workshop and print studio, Outlet. But however, creatively, I felt like the pandemic was making me search for ways of making that felt like home to me. I'm not going to say regressing, okay, I swear. But one of the things that I started was an every other month mail club where subscribers received a zine filled with 2 months of my daily drawings, as well as photographs, a bit of writing, and a new sticker or print. I hadn't sent out zines in the mail since the early 2000s, and this project felt like a big bowl of mac and cheese. That means I really love it. I really love mac and cheese. And another mac and cheese project that had been my weekly, again, I want to back up a little bit. I think everyone should have mac and cheese projects because they are so crucial and so necessary. And so another one of my mac and cheese projects has been my weekly mixtape newsletter that I send out to subscribers. This started because I missed writing a blog and I really like making mixes. They make me happy. That's it. That's the big idea. This process has been fun and sometimes really that's all you need, okay? And these mac and cheese projects give me comfort as I tried to wrap my head around keeping Outlet alive and thriving. Okay, so I love a good third space, and Outlet is such a good third space. And when I talk about third spaces, I'm talking about kind of like theories of community work, where a third space is a social place separate from two main social environments of your home and your workplace. Although Outlet is my workplace, I see it functioning for the community as a third space. And during the pandemic, it truly became my home base for teaching at PSU, for hosting all of our now virtual workshops, for producing all of the Portland State graphic design lectures and events, as well as classes, for my illustration practice, for producing and shipping our online print orders, and for printing and distributing protest posters throughout the Portland community, thanks to the hundreds of people that have safely stepped through our door one at a time to pick out posters, to shout and share. I always prided myself that the key to successful engagement was the in-person aspect of my classes and workshops. I love hosting. I love setting the table. I love creating spaces filled with color, things to touch, things to talk about, and to talk with each other about. I hate icebreaker games to my core. I would prefer that the environment becomes the icebreaker and that people would connect because of the table that I had set or the ephemera surrounding them. My syllabi were always physical and interactive with small notebooks or membership cards. And when I would give in-person talks, I would hide surprises under the seats for the audience to discover or hand out zines and prints and buttons before the talk, sort of like a maniacal, I'll show you here, a maniacal Rip freaking Taylor. For those of you that don't know Rip Taylor, I highly encourage you to Google him. He's a treasure, a king, a man amongst men. I love him. Anyway, I would arrive to my classroom always early to make sure that the space was inviting, that music was on to warm up just the dang room. Everyone was greeted with a smile and a hello. I modeled the way I wanted others to treat each other. So initially losing that human touch, that eye contact, that ability to set the table and make a comfortable and welcoming third place threw me for a dang loop. How do you do this on Zoom? How do you take a super hands-on way of making and translate that to the screen with others? How do you still try to create community? Thankfully, I had my studio manager, Leland Vaughan, to work with so we could figure this puzzle out together.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leland. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm an illustrator, designer, Risograph printing nerd, and the studio manager here at Outlet. I'm mostly going to talk about the latter because I feel like it's the most relevant here, but just to give some context of where I come from, I went to school for graphic design, which is how I met Kate and how I started working here because I fell in love with Riso printing. My favorite things are things that you can hold in your hand: posters, zines, prints, books, and the things that you might associate with those, like typography and collage. But above all, I'm driven by ideas of community, justice, equity, and access. I originally was going to school for social work and then pivoted when I kind of had this epiphany that design has the power to affect change on a huge scale, and that print in particular is a great equalizer in terms of access to information, which, as we know, is a major catalyst for social change. And so much of the work that I've done since then has been with that in mind. An Outlet is like a freaking hub for all of those things. So I feel very lucky and very privileged to get to call this place my home. Kate and I are constantly making jokes about how we live here. And after 2020, it's still a joke, but like less of a joke. We never brought beds in here, but it was like a very near thing. This is a cute picture of Kate and I in the space. You can't really tell, but it was mid-pandemic when we were handling remote printing and virtual workshops and shipping, and the space was just chaos. I mean, we love a healthy dose of chaos at Outlet, but this was a lot. This is a slide of just some of the things I do here in addition to like printing all day, every day. There's a screenshot of my email inbox because let's be real, that is a huge part of my job, especially since we switched everything virtual due to the pandemic. And, you know, speaking of the pandemic, some questions that I asked myself at the beginning of all this were, you know, what does a communal makerspace look like when you take the community out of it? How can we pivot and still offer the same support and creative outlet? And yes, that was a pun. And yes, you can roll your eyes. You know, how does it survive? How do I survive? And I was really scared when I faced those questions because I didn't know the answer to them. And I wasn't sure that we would survive. And then Portland witnessed some truly incredible, historic, awe-inspiring protests in response to police brutality and systemic racism. I was looking for a way to participate and support, and a couple of people reached out just asking if we could print up some protest artwork for them. And I was like, Kate, this is what we're doing. We did a call for submissions. We got a ton, word got out, and we were going through hundreds of posters a day. We were handing out prints and flyers and zines and just getting to interact with our community in this way that felt like such a gift when everything and everyone felt so separate. People were stopping by on their way to a protest, distributing them to others, sending us flyers for different mutual aid events. It was amazing. I still see them up all over the city, and it is so beautiful. We also put together an archive of them on our website. Kate just dropped the link in the chat, just to sort of document this moment in time. I think there's like 75 up there now and growing. There's more I'd like to say about like not losing this momentum, not going quote back to normal. But I'm going to leave it at, we're still handing these posters out for free. We're not going to stop. Please come by and get some, put them everywhere, and don't let people forget. And I think I could speak for Kate on this too, trying to focus more on things that make Outlet feel warm. Like obviously that's been the intention all along, but especially now in this moment, having this space feels like a lifeline. And actually being prompted to speak to this theme really brought this idea home for me. I don't know about y'all, but I'm being absolutely inundated with messages about back to normal and productivity. And I am here to say that that is bullshit in case you need to hear it again. Yes, Outlet is opening up again, but we're trying to do this in a very intentional and very safe way. We really had to pivot this super in-person space over the last year and a half. And in the process, we learned and grew in some pretty incredible ways. And there are things that we're never going to change back to the way that it was before.
So pre-pandemic, Outlet, along with being a third space, was also what I like to call an extender place for students in Portland, primarily PSU students, but also those from other art and design programs. I would regularly have students from other colleges in my workshops, and they would print with our Outlet print assistants during open hours. Outlet acts as an extender space for students to find community after and outside of their experience in an educational setting. That's such a weird time between graduation and like going into the quote unquote real world. I want this space to feel it's kind of a safe zone for that weird wonky transition that kind of throws everyone for a loop, especially in a pandemic. This space has also become a hub for others seeking a social and creative space too. I often had workshop participants who were designers and artists new to Portland taking the workshop as a way to connect with the community here. We are proud that people see Outlet as one of the many points of access to the Portland creative community. Our workshops and events were super hands-on, crammed into the space. I mean, looking at these photos right now, it like makes me super sweaty and claustrophobic. I cannot believe we crammed this many people into here. But really, pre-pandemic, it was an active, this space itself was an active participant in the experience. That's one of the reasons that we actually have one of the Zoom participants is an overview of the space. Like this space is really part of another person. It's me, Leland, and the space in here. This is who we live with. Anyway, during the pandemic, we quickly realized that our mode of delivery needed to change. After many panicked weeks, Leland and I flipped our in-person workshops to online workshops, and we made the announcement that we are open for virtual business. Outlet is a nonprofit. It is not a nonprofit. It is our job to make sure that it is also a functioning business. We were not going to lose this place. When I first opened Outlet, people had asked if we might offer online workshops, and I always thought that that would be impossible, that the experience just wouldn't be the same. Like, how could we offer the same energy, the same fun, the same learning environment on our tiny, dumb little screens? So we never pursued this route, mostly because we were so busy with our in-person events and workshops. So it was imperative to us that when we had to do virtual workshops, that these workshops also had a healthy dose of like IRL action to them. Okay, so every workshop we do ends with a package of prints or zines, or both being delivered in the mail. We make sure we have an active dang chat filled with links and conversations. We send a lot of intro and follow-up emails. It was a lot of work. It still is a lot of work, but it's working, and it's what feels good as an online translation of our physical space. So here we are. We're still in the pandemic, and we love being able to work with more than just the Portland creative community now. Thanks to the weirdness of social media, we discovered when we advertised our print and zine classes that we would have people from all over the US and even the world joining us. Sure, the workshops were different online. And yes, oh my God, yes, we are really looking forward to having in person again. But we really try to set the online table by creating a welcoming space on Zoom. And as I mentioned earlier, in pre pandemic times, I was super adverse to icebreakers. But we figured out a way to ask our participants questions that allowed them to share and to get to know each other and other workshops participants for hopefully future connections. We have had a few of our online workshop folks visit us this summer during their pandemic vacations. And again, there is something magical about a good online connection followed up by an in person experience. So the online workshop and event aspect that I was so adverse to prior to the pandemic is now part of the fabric of Outlet. It's going to stay even as we start to have in-person workshops and events again. My work has always been participatory and conversational, but with Outlet, we can engage community on a deeper level. And we are proud to provide not only a service, but hopefully a cultural resource and a third space for the city of Portland. And through social media and the internet, advocate for DIY strategies and community spaces within the national and international design community. We are grateful every day to have the opportunity within this setting to empower people and create space for community. Artist-run spaces are the bedrock of the culture of a place. And as rising rents and changing demographics threaten the viability of DIY spaces in cities across America, we feel the criticality of maintaining a community space as a political act. We maintain Outlet in the spirit of and with inspiration from other community art spaces in the US and beyond, such as Amos Kennedy's Pile of Bricks print shop in Detroit, The Arm, which is a community letterpress print shop in New York City, Matter, which is a brilliant print shop and project space in Denver, Colorado, run by Rick Griffith and Deborah Johnson, and the Minneapolis Center for the Book, which is the largest independently run book art center in the US. And of course, in the spirit and as a complement to the Independent Publishing Resource Center, which is Portland's own radical community art space in operation since 1998, of which I was also a very active board member for 5 years. Leland and I are proud to be part of the community of artist-run spaces, and we are very much looking forward to keeping Outlet open for a very long time. So please come and visit us. We are open almost every day of the week. And since Leland and I basically live here, this is where you will find us. This is our creative home. Thank you so much for listening to us and watching. And we hope to see you in real life soon. Thank you, everyone.